Welcome, everyone, to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Outdoor Vitals. This podcast is about inspiring you to get outdoors, showing you how to lighten your pack and build your confidence so that you can start living your life full of adventure. I am Joe, and I am here with...
Tayson.
And Brigham.
And today we're going to be talking about...
We need a cool intro. We need to figure out like a cool way to intro us. Let's do that again.
It's called Let Joe. Let
Your
Joe
previous host...
Let Joe... I'm interjecting here. Like, let's give Brigham like a tagline here. Brigham is the what's Ziploc. Here's Ziploc. That's his trail name.
Ziploc? Is Ziploc his trail name?
That's his trail name.
Apparently.
Okay. I'm here with what was yours again? It was something something pocket.
We just maybe better. No, that's not mine. That's Tyler's. No. All right, we've interjected enough. I'm here. Brigham's here. Joe's here. Let's do this. What are we talking about?
We're going to talk about what should be in your emergency kit. We had a YouTube video on this a few weeks ago. We figured we would deep dive further into this topic. First off, should backpackers have an emergency kit? Is that an obvious question?
Yes. It's probably not obvious to everyone, though. And what I would add even to that is I think a lot of people think of having it for backpacking. But I can't remember where I was reading, but I was reading somewhere online, and it talked about how most accidents happen on day trips, and people don't bring them on day trips either. So the nice thing is, what I would say with this is build your kit and make it so that you can bring it everywhere. You know what I mean? So it is critically important, and it's probably more important than you think. I've started to bring it whether I'm getting on a dirt bike, whether I'm hiking, whether I'm just with the family, whatever it is. It's just easy to grab and take, and it's a little bit of a peace of mind in the back of your head. So
can I confess that I have not brought an emergency kit on any one of our trips?
That's obvious. No, just kidding.
You're not the only one. There's others in the company that don't bring a lot of things that depend on other people in the company to provide for them.
I have a first aid kit, and I look at it every time, and I go, someone else will have it.
One time. I'm just sorry. Come on.
I got migraine medications now, and I have an inhaler, and that's it. That's my emergency kit. It's like, this is probably what's going to happen to me.
Add an EpiPen, and you're good, man.
I have yet to come across anything I'm allergic to in that sort of way. Luckily,
it's good. We did see a massive scorpion on our last outing, so.
We did, yeah, or I did, and I took a video of it on my Instagram. It was like barely, you could see it in that little video, yeah, but it was like so quick.
I'd like to see that.
But yeah, there were scorpions out there. That was on the Chinle Trail in Zion National Park, which is our last excursion. We are about to embark on, well, you guys are about to embark on the rim to rim to rim.
Yes.
Fast pack in the Grand Canyon, which would probably be something that you would especially want an emergency kit for, I would guess. Unless you guys are going to like dump all that just because it's fast packing, you only have 30 liters.
No, I take it all.
I don't know what we're diving into. I have no idea. I have my own personal opinions about things, but I don't know what we're talking about.
What should be in an emergency kit?
But this is what we need to do. Joe has no emergency kit. Brigham is probably the most prepared at all times. Like, that's just really built into his personality to be thinking of contingency plans and stuff like that, as well as the kit. So this is why we needed both of you on this podcast. Okay.
Well, I would just say, yeah.
So if you were to ask Brigham, are you going to take anything out of your emergency kit for Grand Canyon, I would almost be willing to bet you'd say no. Am I right?
You're wrong.
No! All right.
I am a multi-emergency kit user, meaning I cater them towards the application.
Okay.
So I may add or take away to a kit depending on the trip. There's there's personal preferences, but then there's also, like risk assessments and most likely case scenarios or most likely injuries, and then there's also factors of how close to support are you? Are you in a group? There's just a lot of factors that I go through in my mind where with the Grand Canyon, that is actually one where I would have a more minimal emergency kit.
So before we get into what's in the kits, I want to maybe ask, have you ever had to use a kit, or just to help people understand like why this is even important? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think it's one of those things you hope you never have to use. And so I think when you don't use it that frequently, people belittle like the importance, right? So have any of us, I guess, is open question, had to dive into their medical kits and use them before? I don't know. We're calling them. It's not a medical kit, a emergency kit, and had to use anything.
I am fortunate and misfortunate to have had to use on many different levels and levels of severity various kits. That's why I have my philosophy that I do of tailoring, a kit for a specific trip, keeping some base contents in there, and having multiple kits that you can throw in or take out just depending on the trip. Because I've used my kit to remove thorns from children. That's another factor. Like, are you a parent? Are you taking children with you a lot? That changes things substantially. So, like, yes, I have used my various kits a number of times at like kind of the worst and most mild levels of severity. So,
can I tell you a story from my perspective? This is who I grew up with as a father. My sister, I believe, split her head open a little. Like, I don't think it wasn't like a crack in the bone or anything like that, but it was bad enough to have stitches. My dad took her hair and just tied it in a knot and called it good.
Holy smokes.
And that's my father.
That's good.
So I can't. I have taken a first aid kit with me on most of my backpacking trips. Once we started going ultralight here and in the group, I have not taken that kit with me at all, and I have never once used it.
Yeah, that's like the ideal scenario.
Yeah,
not to have to use it.
Not to have to use it, exactly. But I imagine with kids, they're going to be a little bit more injury prone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I have not had to use a kit for like real large emergencies in the sense of medical. I have used most things in my kit at times. And I have definitely used my repair kits a lot. So, and those one of them did turn into be kind of an emergency where I ended up having to pack out because it was unrepairable. And another one I was able to, just different times, be able to repair and just continue on, which is ideal. So, yes, but thankfully I've dodged like an extreme condition. Never had to hit the SOS on the inReach.
No, that's good. And the inReach is another like part of your emergency kit almost, even though.
Yeah, I count it as a part. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you got in your emergency kit? I see a bag right here. Whose is this?
Well, if you want to see mine, YouTube, you can see all that. So let's dive into Brigham's first.
Yeah, Brigham, what you got in your emergency kit here?
Are we opening it?
Yeah, go ahead and open it.
I mean, we all know you got nothing on this computer screen, so let's clear up some space here.
So some of this stuff is, for example, what I would consider part of this kit would be my headlamp, but I keep that in my hip belt pocket on my pack.
And maybe for those listening that aren't watching this on YouTube, how heavy would you just estimate? Like, let me feel that. It's not big.
I think it's around 10 ounces. Because I've weighed it. Like, it just depends on... I've taken some things out and put some other things in. Generally, it's around 10 ounces, and that's... Like, I'm sure we'll get into this. It's not like just a medical kit. There's other... emergency or contingency items in there.
And so what you're looking at here on the table is like a 6 by 4 by 2.5 inch type little kit. It's not big at all.
Yeah, that's
like a large sandwich, you might say.
It's actually that's about right.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way of describing
healthy
it.
slices of bread and some meat and cheese inside.
Sometimes I'd trade my kit for a sandwich on the trail, but
So in no particular order, a little baggie of ibuprofen and Tylenol.
You know what? I told a guest, it will be next week's guest, told her about Tayson, your the way that you had your all your medications
Yeah.
in the bag, and that you had a sticky note to tell you which ones were which.
Yeah.
She thought that was pretty funny.
Oh no, we'll get into that. A few tenacious section of tenacious tape, couple patches. So that's kind of gear repair. And then I keep this bag is more specific to like medical.
I mean, are you changing your Ziplocs after every trip, or do you just keep them that nice? I mean, those look like brand new.
Some of them I
that.
change. Usually the meds, like the pain meds, that one gets changed the most because I use those the most, so it like gets ripped the most frequently. Like this one,
you're not messing around with the
dull
zipper.
looking. And then I always take like. I happen to have 2 lighters in here. I must have found one. So 2 lighters, a little bit of pyro putties or fire starting tinder. I always keep this bug net in there because it is very light, but it's kind of like multi-use. If you get some really nasty water, then you can kind of sort out some things.
Pre-filter it.
Yeah. Ooh, a little excessive on the fire. So 2 lighters and this little fire steel.
Let me feel that one. Because I always avoid these because they're so heavy, but that one's not too bad. It's a self-made one with some electric tape on there.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to strike that with your knife?
Yeah.
Oh, this is okay. So it makes sparks. Okay.
Yeah, you scrape it and it'll light this stuff.
You got like 9 of those.
Ferro rod. That's what I'm trying.
Yeah. Ferro rod, fire steel, and then I keep 2 AAAs and I keep them in a balloon.
In the heroin balloon?
Because the balloon weighs nothing, but it's totally waterproof and you're not going to get any issues. Sometimes the AAAs will eventually leak or they'll seep out some nastiness. So having it in the balloon keeps it off of everything.
That's a cool
I think
trick.
also being sealed in there keeps it from leaching.
It helps
because I think moisture is the biggest cause of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so little kids, birthday party balloon. And then this is what I use for scissors. It's a little Victorinox tiny one. So it's got scissors.
Like a multi-tool.
Yeah.
I used to think as a kid those were literally for kids. Like I thought they were like kind of a joke of an item. And as I grew older, I started to realize how many people would like just like you take them on trips like this, and it's like, no, those were actually useful. Like I thought they were just things for play kids because they're like a nearly dull knife and a couple little extra things, but
these
Swiss Army knives are real.
And these little tweezers, I have removed many thorns and splinters from the kids. So that's definitely worth having. And then it's just got a little tiny cutting knife, a nail file, and scissors. The scissors is kind of another helpful one for like blisters, using moleskin or kind of custom making some edges. So then
Scissors are nice.
in the actual first aid category, I keep porous tape. So it's got breathability to it.
Okay.
And then
When would you use porous tape?
I just use it for my tape. For
Okay.
any first aid
So,
tape.
like,
I just prefer to use the porous
I
tape
use-
because it does breathe a little bit.
If I were to be using Leuco tape, you'd be using that
Well, I wouldn't put this
in the same
for
category.
like blister purposes as I would,
Okay.
because I have
Mainly medical purposes.
I have Leuco tape sections in here
Okay.
for like blister prevention.
Okay.
But for like bandaging and like first aid applications, I like this tape. Okay, so
Okay. I was wondering about blister stuff. I'm like, I'm not seeing blister stuff.
It's labeled right there.
So
yeah, then he turned it around and it was labeled. Yeah.
that one. See, this
Neat
is a
label.
new Ziploc. So this has got. I pull our packing labels out of the garbage in the warehouse
Okay.
because it's got the non-stick backing, and then you cut them into strips, and then I just unroll some Leuco tape, and I keep like there's maybe 2 6-inch sections folded in half here, and then there's a blister pad.
Would you take more on a longer trip of that stuff?
No.
How often have you had to actually use that?
I rarely actually use Leuco tape.
Okay.
But going to groups, taking kids, it's more for other people. And and then that was moleskin in there. Yeah, that's a sheet of moleskin folded in half. This is the Leuco tape. So that's like blister treatment, and then these are the little strips of
Gotcha.
Leuco tape.
I see it.
I mean, something to note there is just that Brigham spends enough time on trail and training that he really has a good idea of feet and blister prevention. I think a lot of people, blisters is a massive deal because they're not spending as much time as, say, Brigham is out on trail. So he you know, you kind of said, like, I kind of take it for other people or as a secondary backup. But, I think you should, I don't know. For some people, that's going to be really important, and that should
For sure. I mean, and look at, like, this is your heart. You are paying very little penalty by taking a couple strips of this, and
in terms of weight.
In terms of weight and bulk, you know, if you're somebody that has issues with it. I don't know. I do keep a few of these Aqua Tabs. They're just water treatment. So there's probably 10 or 12 of these in here. Each one treats a liter. Mm-hmm. So I consider that part of first aid because heat exhaustion, heat injuries, dehydration, that is a legitimate first aid scenario.
And filters can break. I mean, you could have one freeze on you. That's definitely happened, and I've also had them
clog on you.
Yeah, clog to where they're almost unusable. Or I've also had one that I don't know exactly what happened to it, but it started pushing water out the sides of the filter. Ooh. And I realized that and had to stop using that immediately. So that's also it's a good one.
This is when we did our Wind River trip. I only took these because I didn't want to take a filter because I thought, you know, like high country streams, and it's totally fine. So you can save a couple ounces of filter. So these are, I just call these bleeders. So these are like if you have a more substantial cut.
It's like gauze and stuff in there?
Yeah, they're 4x4 gauze bandages. Gotcha. Just fold in half. There's probably 3 or 4 in there. Then I take Steri Strips. I don't know, there's 2 or 3 packages in here. They're tiny. They're just tiny. And then there's like some antibiotic ointment in there. I do take Benadryl, children's Benadryl and adult Benadryl. The children's is probably the most important. I haven't had allergic reactions to like bug bites or anything, but I have had to use these for my children where I have a daughter that has really bad reactions to mosquito bites, and she's had some pretty severe reactions. So, and then I call these more like kid bandages, the kid pack, because it's like all sizes of Band-Aids, which are just best for scrapes. And
I haven't seen one of these in forever. What is that?
This is a Benzoin Tincture.
Like you crack it open or something.
Yeah, you crack it open, you pour it on if you're going to... It helps bandages stick to the skin, but it also has some antiseptic abilities to it. It kind of sanitizes the site and stuff.
So what I immediately... Okay, there's nothing anti-itch. There's nothing anti-chafe.
Nope.
I haven't... Okay. Why is that?
Anti-itch, that's what... The Benadryl... Are you talking like bug bite itch or
yeah? Let's say you rub up against like a nasty plant.
Yeah, I've thought about that. It's not a bad idea because there is. I just don't ever encounter a lot of poison ivy where I go or poison oak. We have encountered it, but
I thought Brigham was just going to say like itching is just a figment of the mind. Like
just live with it.
It's not a real thing.
Benadryl might help.
It might.
Just rub it on there.
If you wanted to throw a little bit of like lidocaine in there, probably be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there anything from your kit that's missing in his, Tayson?
I leave my toothbrush in there. That's just kind of a preference thing. I had a few more, let's see, like I had like Tums, and I had my Tylenol is Tylenol PM, and then I'll take like ibuprofen in the day typically. I did have like soap just for cleaning stuff out if that's ever kind of an option. Fire starters is basically the same. I had cordage in mine. I carry just a little bit of either paracord or even smaller cord than that. And that's just kind of not so much medical, just
handy.
All sorts of things, guy lines on tents I've had to use it for, etc. I do typically have a small thing of squirrel's nut butter.
Yeah.
And I'll use that for different things. I have like these small. It's actually a sample size, and I think we actually bought enough samples to sell to members. So that's probably the only place you can get one that size. It's like a half-ounce size, but I keep it in there for chafing, or it's really like the ingredients and stuff on it. Like I'd put that on my feet or something at night if I was feeling like they were struggling. Or
it's more multi-purpose than it's kind of marketed as.
Yeah, it really is. If you look at the ingredients, it is. I do have the water tabs. I'm a big believer in that. I mean, the scariest times I've ever had in the backcountry have been water related. You think there's water here, there's not. You burn through too much water and you're out. And it's just crazy how quick you can get dehydrated out there and then start to lose cognitive ability or just, all that kind of thing. So to me, the Aqua Tabs, just in case something did happen is like almost priority one of anything. I mean, that's like your quickest way to get into really bad situations. My repair kit, I had like the full tenacious tape kit. So I have some like sealant in there and a brush. I have...
It's in case the pad goes downhill.
You get a little...
Yeah, pad is the main part to have that for sure. Or like if you ripped even maybe a rain jacket or something, it might help with sealing those up. I use Leuco Tape. So I didn't have the other tape he had. I just had more Leuco Tape. And I've actually stopped bringing, any kind of duct tape. I just bring Leuco Tape. Extra batteries, Garmin InReach, same stuff. So
when you're using Leuco Tape for a blister, how exactly do you just putting that tape like right on the blister, or you use it like moleskin where you put it around the blister?
It's different.
Curious.
I would imagine his application is the same as mine. You use it for prevention first. Like if you know you're if you know you're prone to blisters in a certain spot, before you even start walking on the trail, you're putting Leuco Tape on those areas and then pulling your socks over it. And that actually can prevent a lot of blisters from even happening.
I would definitely, those hot spots are, I think last year I was using it, and it was because of hot spots. I knew if I didn't use it, they were going to start to develop because I could see the preemptive signs and stuff. But for the most part, I don't have much blister problems unless I'm really doing... actually, the only time I really get blisters is in wet conditions. So last year we were out on the trail doing big mileage days in the rain, and that's when my feet they soften up in the moisture all day, and then that created my blistering problems. And I wouldn't even say they're problems. Like with the Leuco Tape, it really was a non-issue for me. Might have been because my feet were numb most of the day because from being cold, but really wasn't an issue. And even afterwards, it really wasn't an issue. But that's like, if you can be preemptive with Leuco Tape, that's good. I think and then just one step further, like I remember listening to someone maybe on a podcast talking about how they preemptively tape every time they go out, and I'm like, to me, it's like you got a boot problem here, like or something, because. I think some people are just going to be more prone to blisters and whatnot, but I think there's different people can find different shoes and spend some time trying it.
Every time I've had blisters, I feel like it's the shoes. Like they're just like my last pair of workout shoes. They just like for a few weeks, like they were just always blistering in the same spot on the back of my heel or something like that. There's just something wrong with the shoe and my foot that didn't get along. But it's not like when I wear a different pair of shoes, I don't get the same blisters.
And I'd say like the most common thing in this area is probably related to stiff boots. People that are like they're really scared of rolling ankles, or maybe they're hunters and they're packing heavier weights, and so they're putting on really stiff boots. And I think there's just a significantly higher probability of blistering in a stiff boot.
That was what I was going to add. Is I think a lot of blister problems come from people overshoeing themselves, and a lot of that just comes from like inexperience or less experience, and they just think that's what you're supposed to do is wear boots. We were talking about this down at the national park the other day. It's like a lot of people, they don't get out and hike very much, but they do read articles, they see pictures, and they see people wearing leather boots.
Boots look good for a photo, yeah.
But then they put them on once a year, go for a hike. And so I think a lot of people get blisters just from having inappropriate footwear. I think most more experienced backpackers that are, especially ones that are generally wearing like a trail runner or a light hiker, have way less problems with blisters.
What about but that's like, so if that's the progression, what do you think about the guys wearing sandals out there?
Yeah, that's like, I think going too far. You know, to each his own. If you know your body, if you you're proven, then you know that's
I was
fine.
in Moab last weekend.
Get some rocks under there. I wouldn't like
Oh
that.
man, we're in Moab last weekend. We're out there in side by sides. There's some people biking down the trail, a big popular biking trail. 2 guys come hiking down this trail, and we're stopped like having lunch with our kids and stuff. And these guys come walking by. Kid you not, one guy had sandals with socks. The other guy had sandals that were basically like the tiny, like an 1/8 inch of rubber with string, like 2 pieces of string over the top. And my buddy just looks at me like, that guy's hardcore. And I'm like, he's something. I don't know what he is.
What about the people who go barefoot everywhere?
Yeah, they're really connected. With the trail.
Connected with the earth.
Yeah, it's intense. I mean, I think there's a lot of people like to hike in chacos. Like, I'm not even thinking about that, but I don't hike in chacos personally. I like just the lighter the footwear that I can get away with, the better, the more comfortable. And just at the end of the day, you feel the best. I wouldn't
want bug bites on my feet. I wouldn't want any of that.
Oh, like with sandals?
No, I don't wear shorts on hiking trips. I can't stand like things brushing up against me. I don't know how you guys wear shorts.
I'm the same way. I rarely wear shorts. Last week I wore shorts because all my pants were in the laundry. I wear them on like the High Line and the Skyline, where we're either going to be running or like putting in tons of miles and maybe doing some R&D.
That's a less buggy area, though. I'd say that's a less.
Well, it depends on the time of year.
Yeah, and where you are on the trail.
I'm the same way as you. I generally prefer pants for. I'm the same. I don't
outdoor
like
stuff.
touching my legs.
Yeah.
My legs are very white. They get burnt easy.
I'm in the same category. There you go.
Yeah. My calves got
diversion.
Toasted last time.
Well, I think like that's a good point. Is like one of the biggest things about these emergency kits. Is like, yeah, you have this stuff, but the biggest thing is prevention. You don't want to have to use it. So having something like the Garmin InReach or something like that, so that you are covered. But in case something like crazy happens and you're out there in the middle of nowhere, but like the biggest thing is like, okay, you don't have anti-itch stuff. I would like some anti-itch stuff, but probably best to know what those plants look like.
Yeah.
Before you go out there on the trail.
I think that's a misconception a lot with first aid kits is like people think disaster kits, not emergency kits. And even emergency just feels like a disaster, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you're not using the stuff in your kit like once a year, if you're pretty active, like then maybe your kit's not even right. You know what I mean? Like hopefully there's stuff you're not using, but you should be getting into that kit for something. You know what I mean? And so I think people sometimes they just build up an emergency kit as like just stuff for the disasters, and I think it should be a tool that you're looking at a lot. I was kind of surprised because I'm a little bit like I build it and then I just check the box, whereas Brigham's a little more active, specific for each trip. That's probably the preferred way. Everyone can kind of do it differently, but I do know I use my kit. I know other people use their kits, and I think that's a good thing.
So what are you going to do different for the Grand Canyon, off the top of your head?
I will probably take less. It would be like taking less bandage material.
Because there's so many people out there with us?
Mm-hmm. There's so many people.
And everybody's assuming Brigham has the stuff, and then someone gets injured.
Hopefully not.
It's pretty like, everything in here is pretty like deliberate and...
Like fire starters, just like, is that even needed? In
for sure. I won't be taking 2 lighters. There shouldn't be 2 lighters in there anyway. But I won't even be taking that because you can't even have a fire there.
Right.
So, and it's 90 degrees down there. So, the fire stuff, that'll be coming out. And honestly, I may just, because it's convenient, just not take other things out, just so I don't have to repack them. But...
Okay. So fire stuff. Will you be taking children's Benadryl?
I don't know.
It's in there. And it weighs a fraction of an ounce.
There is an element of convenience to
just leave it in there.
Trying to not take things out and put them in as much as possible. I try and have different bags that are like more leveled up or leveled down. So,
do we know what the mosquito situation is going to be like over there? Like, are they in season by the time
I got
we're
bit
over
last weekend, so I'm sure they're there.
I mean, we're going to be by a river.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's the
there'll
Colorado River. I've done some rafting on
You'll be spending the most time down there.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
I would bring some.
Take some bug.
Take some bug
juice,
repellent.
Yeah, it would be worth it for sure.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to note about being prepared for an emergency or anything like that?
One that we didn't really touch on here because it wasn't in Brigham's was I added a sewing kit into my system last year. And the thought process there is, let's just say hypothetically, I added it when we went and did Highline last year. I probably could have added it earlier on or something, but when I did Highline, we're basically so deep into the wilderness that let's say you have the strap, let's say it's the shoulder strap on you, and somehow it comes undone or gets torn, I don't know, something like that. You break a buckle even, you know what I mean? Like you smash a buckle on a rock, step on it or something, and somehow it just becomes, you've only got one shoulder strap now. Well, when you're 20 or so miles into the wilderness, that becomes quite a predicament where, a half ounce of thread and needle, you could fix it enough to continue on your trip and keep going. So sewing kit to me is not so much medical, but it's I think it could be just as much as important as some of the taping and stuff like that, and it's just crazy light. So I think a little tiny sewing kit there, you can spend like $2 to $3 at Walmart and have everything you need.
So you didn't buy a sewing kit; you made a sewing kit.
I bought a sewing kit and took half of the crap out of it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that when you were showing it on the video that we made. It was like a weird spool and like. Yeah, it seemed it's
a little bit of thread. I was kidding. There's like a tiny bit of thread and like 2 needles, and I don't even know if there's anything else in there. But I just bought like a $3 kit at Walmart and literally took like half of the stuff even in there out.
Right.
So that's something. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the Garmin Reaches. I'm sure you guys are sold on those by now. Maybe the last thing would just be like, you can put these together yourself really easily. We've talked a little bit for the membership about partnering with something like Adventure Medical Kits. They've got pretty decent kits, but I would still be in the park of like, if you got that for a base kit, then you could add and tailor it just a little bit for you, with the amount of ibuprofen Brigham takes. So that's something he has to tailor every trip, No, but that's something. So, if you're interested in that, maybe drop that in comments or email the podcast. What is that?
liveultralightpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us your questions, comments, anything.
Yeah. So, send it in there, and maybe we'll put a little bit of heat on Tyler actively is looking at that. So, for him to get those, so that you guys can get those through us and make it a little bit easier and a little bit more affordable.
In the meantime, you can at least get the squirrel's nut butter or
the InReach,
Yeah, and we got some good darn tough socks that we recommend here.
That's all the gauze I use. It's just my spare darn tough socks at the moment.
That's a good point. Good socks are a very good blister prevention. So.
I need to get into that. I've been using sports socks mostly.
Are you going to get a pair for this hike?
Good socks.
It's time.
It's worth it.
Especially at your price.
I would suggest that one first aid kit doesn't do a lot of good if you don't know what's in it.
We do need to talk all about that.
So
talk about labeling. Talk about all of it. We shouldn't have missed over that.
So first. I'll get to that, but first, find what works for you, but acknowledge that, what we often focus on as a company is, don't pack your fears. There's this other, with first aid kits, it's kind of this thing that sort of goes against a little bit of the packing standard of, if you don't use it, then don't pack it, because it's a contingency for what probably won't ever happen, right? But it's a balance of analyzing the risk and having some sort of solution for the rare chance that something does happen. And it's a balance. It could happen gets really, really heavy really fast, and it starts to get in people's heads. So, somebody could... There's no tourniquet in my pack. I have other kits that have tourniquets because the situation that kit is for, there's a higher likelihood of a more traumatic event, right? But so I think it's important that everybody understands, like, when you go backpacking, you are automatically assuming some sort of risk, right? So you can't just try and think of everything that could happen and have a contingency for it, or a piece of first aid kit specific for, what could happen. But analyze your experience level, some of the factors. What's the weather? What's the terrain? Are there other people with you? Do you have children? Things like that. And then think about what are the more likely bad things to happen that could happen, and a lot of the times that is just, if you're having kids, most likely it's a trip and some scrapes, some thorns or splinters, because kids love breaking sticks, right? Like, that stuff's really easy to account for. And then you pretty much have to just accept some level of risk that, nope, you don't have an ER of resources for every possible bad thing that could happen. And that's something that you really just have to come to terms with and be okay with, because
you're not bringing a defibrillator.
If you want to start bringing, everything to handle every scenario, it's just going to take away from the enjoyment of your trip because it weighs 5 pounds.
Yeah, and so you're saying learn to improvise?
Yeah, learn to improvise. It doesn't hurt to take some classes, but then getting back to the kit, the emergency kit and the first aid kit, I think it's very valuable. Even if you do buy a pre-made kit, immediately take everything out of it and read what it is and do the mental exercise of how this would be used. And it's probably really easy because most people know how a Band-Aid is used, but there's other things that people might not know how to use. So even that, but putting it together is also a great rehearsal of just knowing what's in there. So when, your daughter gets a splinter or whatever, a scrape, then that you can provide them some comfort quickly because you know where the Band-Aid is, where the antiseptic ointment is before you put the Band-Aid on, and just things like that.
One of the things that is in my kit actually came with this. I've Quick Clot actually in my kit, and with that Quick Clot came this little fold-up piece of paper that has a bunch of field guide essentially for emergencies, and I kept that with it, and I've because what I've seen and what I've heard as well as this as firsthand stuff is that when things go wrong, you quit thinking as clearly, and it's really easy to panic. It's really easy to
like how to treat for shock, CPR, all that.
Yeah, so like you could, if you were at least at wit's end enough to like pull that sheet out and quickly reference something, that would be really helpful. Or worst case scenario, I'm the one that's injured, and the person doesn't know what they're doing that's trying to help me. You know what I mean? And so it's like you might have something you could address them towards, or whatever it might be. But I think that's helpful. I mean, obviously that's secondary to reading that beforehand and knowing things beforehand, because practice and building almost those habits, is going to be what you really need in an emergency situation of like, if this happens, then this, and that's trained into your mind a little bit. That's definitely best case scenario, but that's kind of the fallback piece. And I'd agree. I think that there's definitely more I could learn about field, in the field medical stuff that would probably be helpful as well. Because a lot of times, you just think, I've got really good common sense, and sometimes that common sense is nowhere to be found, after a 25-mile day on the mountain, and then you fall, and then you've got an issue or something.
Is anybody in the office a first responder? I had to do that twice. I did it once in high school, and then I did it again a few years later when I was working at the Boy Scout camp. We all had to be like first responder certified.
Wilderness first responder certification.
It wasn't wilderness; it was just first responder.
Oh yeah.
I'm just wondering if anybody is.
I've had various.
Yeah, I'm sure you have
courses,
with the military stuff.
I mean, I did stuff in Boy Scouts. That was more like some stuff like at pools. I think, I was always around a pool in my younger days, so like lifeguard type stuff.
Speaking of Boy Scouts and their thing, they would suggest you have a mirror and a compass and a magnifying glass.
Snake bite
Where's all that stuff at, Brigham? No mirrors?
No mirror. I have a GPS, and I've never been lost.
You have a phone and a GPS.
I actually thought you did carry a small compass, no?
Not in this one. Not in this one.
Okay.
If I'm going like solo for multiple days in an area that I've never been, and then I consider bringing the compass. Really only does
that only helps if you have a map.
If you have a map, so
like it has to be a pretty specific map, and then you can figure out where north is and where you are. Yeah,
it's it's a different thing, but again, everyone needs to be specific to it. But I was trained from a very young age, even by my grandpa, to just pick out landmarks. Like I just always have been trained to pick out landmarks and try to know where I'm at and stuff. So some people that don't do that. My wife, for instance, you could take her up the street and I feel like she'd get lost sometimes, right? So knowing yourself is important. But I also what I like to do is you typically spend hours and hours and hours over weeks and weeks if I know I'm going into an area just on Google Earth, or my favorite is Onyx Maps, where I can get a 3D view of everything with the trails going which way and it'd be very rare for me to get somewhere and not be able to pick out major landmarks right away. We're not up in Alaska where it's too big of land to understand, it's even in some of the biggest wilderness areas here, I typically would have a pretty dang good idea of where everything's at just from, my I could call it a hobby of just spending time on Google Earth.
Yeah.
I do think a whistle would not be a bad idea. It's not lightweight plastic one.
I've used a whistle.
Okay.
To help find somebody, so. It's not in there.
It's not in there. All right.
Sweet. Okay. I don't know if I've got anything else to add. I think that was... I like that we touched on that, though. I think labeling stuff is nice, but I think also knowing beforehand and maybe if some of those events, like I would think from what I've seen in some of the medical kits you could buy from a store, a lot of times they'll just have a little quick reference guide, and I think those can be helpful too.
Probably. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, feel free to send us your comments, questions about backpacking, cool outdoor stories, or ideas for future episode topics. And if we think it'll bring value to our audience, we will read it or perform it, whatever it is on the show. If someone has an idea for an episode topic, then we would go into it. We would make it an episode. You can send those by commenting on our Live Ultralight Podcast YouTube channel, or you can send us an email at liveultralightpodcast@gmail.com. For you guys listening at home, check out the Live Ultralight Podcast YouTube channel. When Brigham was pulling out all the stuff, he might not have been super specific enough. So if you guys want a second look at that, there is video of us having this conversation.
The sandwich bag size wasn't super specific, so
it's I not right now, but I can find a way to describe that a little better, the way that the sandwich looks. And you can also send us positive iTunes reviews, and those will be read on the show. Please, guys, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to let Tayson know that you listen to the podcast, please use the links in the description below. Next time you decide to buy an Outdoor Vitals piece, there are links in the description for our awesome gear. And if you click through that link, that lets us know that you are, in fact, listening to the show.
There's someone on the other side of the mic.
Yep. All right, guys. We will see you next time.